Project Zero Trust last month was inducted into the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame.
Hey, nice.
Think about that, dude. Like there are only 50 books in the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame, books that I read 20 years ago when I was starting out, and like to have my name in that list, like it's just bonkers, man. I'm just so blown away that people, it resonated so much.
Who says tech can't be human?
What's going on, Hacker Valley fam? Welcome back to the show. I am so excited for this episode. I feel like this one is long overdue. I get to be a fanboy for this specific guest that I have on. About a year ago, I checked out a book called Project Zero Trust, and I immediately started reading it. I was loving it, and I went on LinkedIn and I told the whole world that this is not only my favorite book, but it's the best book in cybersecurity, hands down, bar none. And my special guest for this episode is the author for Project Zero Trust. My special guest is George Finney, Chief Information Security Officer at the University of Texas System. Also, George has a new book coming out titled Rise of the Machines, and it drops early June. George, thank you so much for taking some time out of your busy day and joining us. Most importantly, welcome to the show.
Ron, thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to talk to you. This is going to be cool.
So we got to just jump right into it. I was surprised that we had never met. You know, we roll in some of the same circles. And when I read your book, I said, I got to know who this person is. How did you get to this point? What was leading up to you being, you know, this prolific CISO writing books? How did you get here today?
Man, I've been around the block a little bit. I worked in some startups. Worked for, SBC Communications before they were AT&T, right? Did some consulting for different organizations, but ultimately I've been in higher education now for 20 years. I started at Southern Methodist University in Dallas because I wanted to get my law degree because that seemed like a good idea at the time. And just, I had the wonderful privilege of being able to teach a cybersecurity course at SMU. It's been about 10 years ago, and that's really what made the difference for me. Like there was a switch that flipped in my head, and I knew I wanted to start being able to give back. And I was always a writer. I love writing, and just bringing my two passions together has made all the difference. Just I love giving back, and hearing folks that really enjoyed the book. You didn't throw this out there, but Project Zero Trust last month was inducted into the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame.
Hey, nice.
Think about that, dude. Like there are only 50 books in the Cybersecurity Hall of Fame. Books that I read 20 years ago when I was starting out, and like to have my name in that list, like it's just bonkers, man. I'm just so blown away that people, it resonated so much.
For anyone that doesn't know, there is a resource by the University of Ohio where they have a collection of books that they deem to be a must read for anyone that's in the field or wanting to learn about cybersecurity. And this is one of those books. I agree with that decision that they made, that forum made, because it was like reading I would say a little bit of like a drama action, but all of the information was relevant. It's like when you watch things like Mr. Robot, you kind of want these details to come out, but you want them to be real, especially as a practitioner. And I thought that your book did an amazing job of capturing a real story, but also how cybersecurity really works.
Yeah, and that's what we miss, right? I think we talk about bringing more people into cybersecurity all the time. But the way we do that is to make it approachable, to kind of ground it, and telling stories about. I mean, it's not your average security reference guide. They're characters, right? And there's folks at the help desk in the story. There's folks in project management or in legal, and you get to see the big picture on how all of the aspects, everything we do in security kind of comes together. And yeah, I mean, so much of what we do today in security is so specialized. Some people might only ever use one tool in their career. So bringing that all of it back together, again, I think that's part of why it resonates with people is, it's so centered on the humans in the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And, a lot of the tools that we use, they show us the flaws of systems and processes. But I think a lot of the tools that we use, if they describe people, even EDR in a way, I think it talks about the user, but it doesn't necessarily talk about the person. I think, getting the person back into the core and the center of everything makes a lot of it more relatable. And when we were preparing for this episode, we did a little feature on you. And one of the things that the team found out was that you got into cybersecurity by hacking your college database.
I mean, it's such a hilarious story. I mean, I would just, right out of high school, and my first office job. I had to. They asked me to hand label this mass mailing they did, hundreds of letters that I had to write to potential recruiters for the college. And I got called into the boss's office one day, and she had a stack of mail on her desk, and she's like, "Dude, your handwriting is so bad that half the letters got returned." And I was like, "Oh, why don't we have a label making situation? Because we had all the addresses." And she's like, "Well, we got locked out of the database. Whatever student worker years ago, we didn't write the password down or whatever." So I'm like, "Oh, okay. Let me figure that out so we don't have this problem again, because my handwriting is never going to improve." So really, that's how I got the start. I figured out how to crack a default password on a FileMaker 1.0 database, which, I mean, it wasn't that hard really, but that is kind of where, wait a minute, this is something people do. They were looking at getting an outside consultant to figure it out. I saw how much of a difference that made to that office. I mean, technology is so important to every part of the business now. Security is an integral part of that.
What I love most about that is a lot of the people that we have on the podcast, they were doing it without permission, but someone said, "Hey, we could save a few bucks by having this young kid break in." I think that's smart. I wish that my high school would have called me for issues like that, especially when teachers got locked out of their computers, because then I would have done a lot more ethically than unethically at that time. I think that what that comes back to is taking risks. I'm sure that saying that you would experiment with cracking that database password was a little bit of a risk, because as time, it could have been a failed experiment. But I would imagine, especially looking at your background, that you are someone that takes very calculated risks, but takes the risks nonetheless. What would you say is the biggest risk that you took early on in your career?
Man, I went to work at this startup in Denver, and I had a great job at a global corporation. It was a pretty, it was a manager role. Didn't love it. I mean, it was a corporation. Everybody, has their feelings about that. It was a huge risk to go work with a couple of friends from college. Didn't know if I'd even make any money, and spoiler alert, I didn't get a paycheck for 6 months.
Oh,
and right, it was a big risk. I'd never gotten stock options or knew anything about being in kind of a startup mode. Didn't know the right questions to ask to really even vet the opportunity. I just knew I knew these guys, and it's an exciting time. Let's go jump in with both feet and see what happens. That's how I learned to be a Linux sysadmin. Is their Linux guy had quit and gone to moved back to be with his family, and I thought, you know what, I want to expand my knowledge here, and I was still in my 20s at the time, and I thought if I'm ever going to make this kind of leap and take this kind of risk, I knew I wanted to take it early on before I had a family, before I had a more established career, and I don't know if I'd take the same risk again, if I had to do it over. But I learned so much about security, I was on the network side before. If I didn't take that leap, I wouldn't be where I am today, for sure.
So would you say that role gave you some like serious skills, or maybe just hard, fast learn war experience? What would you say was the biggest takeaway for you?
The guy that I replaced, his name was Ben. I also went to college with him. Ben is the most paranoid dude you would ever imagine. I mean, he's completely off the grid. Like you couldn't even look him up and Google him to find him today. And so I inherited his systems that he had locked down to a degree that I didn't even know was possible. So I essentially had to not just teach myself Linux sysadmin kind of stuff, but I'm really locking it down to his standards was a whole different thing, man. I mean, and I think that was really where I started to broaden my perspective around security. Right, it wasn't just firewalls and letting ports open or close. I was really thinking systemically about how we protect our systems and challenging the way that I've been doing them before. So it was really transformational. And shout out to Ben. You know who you are. If you're listening to this somewhere,
we'll have to send it to him. One of the things that I reflect on early on in my career, when I got in 2010, when I got my professional break into cybersecurity, there was a transition of cybersecurity practitioners still being sysadmins. And the people that were sysadmins were infinitely better than everybody else because they had to almost be like a hybrid of security, IT, and customer success for engineers.
Yeah.
And, so they got to touch and experience so much. And I would imagine that someone like you, someone that was in that seat for, especially a startup that needed you on the drop of a dime, you probably got a lot of the experience in the zero trust world through that role.
That's exactly right. I mean, from such an early part of my career, I knew, right, an ounce of preventions were the pound of cure.
Mm-hmm.
We have to focus on prevention. Our so much of what we did in terms of customer service at a startup, we rely on the trust that we have with our clients, hosting their data, getting that word of mouth to the next client. Right. It's a critical part of the business, and you're so tied to the core of the business when you're in a startup. I think that's really transformational. And we didn't call it zero trust in 2003. The phrase wasn't coined until 2010. But I think a lot of the movement that preceded the official coining of the term and kind of bringing it together as a strategy, like all of those threads kind of go back years even before that, and everybody in the community starting to think more critically about the ways that we do security and challenge assumptions or manage CDEs or whatever. I think that's really the root of it for sure.
So I have a few tough questions for you, but we'll start with the easy one. Being in this space, especially writing Project Zero Trust, having the foreword by Mr. Kindervog himself, how would you define zero trust today?
So there's only one definition. It's not up for debate anymore. So zero trust is a strategy for preventing or containing breaches by removing the trust relationships we have in digital systems. It's not about not trusting people. It's not an architecture. It's not a tool that you can buy. It's a strategy. And people in my chair, CISOs, we own strategy for organizations, right? We have to be able to articulate what zero trust is to our teams, to our board, to our leadership, to our peers, right? We have to have a strategy. I mean, every leader needs to have that. And so I would challenge you. I think zero trust is the only strategy out there when it comes to cyber. Period.
Hearing that it's a strategy, me being a solutions guy, I love products. I love trying to marry a product to a strategy. I think many have tried, more have failed, and also gotten the end of the stick with a whack, trying to call their product a zero trust product. Why is that the case? Why can't we build a product that is in alignment with the strategy?
I think there's certain tools out there that certainly do align with the overall strategy, but it's really about understanding the organization first, right? That's the principal tenet of zero trust is you've got to align with the business. There is no one size fits all approach, right? So frameworks, it's a one size fits all thing. There's a reason why compliance doesn't equate to security. Think of it like I'm a tailor. I want to customize the suit to fit the unique individual that I'm making a suit for, and it's a different experience. This as well. You're a stylish guy, right? It's a different feel when you are wearing something that's custom made just for you versus a baggy zoot suit kind of thing that you would get off the shelf, right? You move differently, you feel differently. I think that's the difference with zero trust is, cool. You need pants, you need a jacket probably, or whatever. And certainly you need, antivirus, or EDR. You need a solution for remote workers, but we're not saying, well, you have to do it any specific way. And in fact, I start with, don't think about products, because I think too often your zero trust initiatives don't get started because people feel like, I need to go get, a couple $1 million to go buy these tools before I can start. You can start wherever you're at. You can start if you have one server and no firewall. You can start if you have firewalls and just basic EDR that's free from Microsoft. It's about thinking critically about your environment, what the business has to accomplish, and how you can wrap the appropriate controls around that. And certainly, if the business is more complicated, if you have an API, you also need an API, firewall, right? Those things go together. You need to address your gaps. But again, there is no one size fits all approach.
I need to jump in for a second and share some details about a special group that we've created for you, our listeners. We understand the importance of creativity in cybersecurity, and Hacker Valley has created a special Cyber Creators Mastermind. Each month, we meet and discuss how to break down technical concepts through stories, the intricacies and opportunities of using audio and video to highlight what's important in cybersecurity, and we share how you can use content to highlight the hard work that you put into your craft. You can check out the mastermind by visiting hackervalley.com/mastermind. We'd love to help unlock your creative potential and would love to see you there. So, I'm sure everyone has had this situation happen. And if any of my team is listening, I'm sorry in advance. But we build, amazing systems at Hacker Valley, mainly for, building out content. And every now and again, I say, guys, I need this right now. That process that we have of, how content flows from one person to the next, I needed to come to me so I could, get ahead of things. And things like that are terrible for strategies like especially zero trust. I'm sure there's many entrepreneurs or executives out there that say, all right, all the security in the world, perfect on my computer, I can't do it. I need to be able to move freely and run like the wind. I think just with that little piece, at least from my understanding of zero trust, now you're not actually deploying and implementing a zero trust strategy because there's someone that has implicit trust.
Yeah. So, I think this is, I don't know if I've said this yet, but the most important part of zero trust is people, right? If just the security nerds in the room understand zero trust, your zero trust projects will likely fail. Again, you've got to have great relationships with your business There's a ton of education and communication and project management that you have to wrap around zero trust to effectively implement it and sustain it. Part of it is exceptions. Part of it is culture, right? So, you're totally right. If you have a culture where your CEO believes that they have to have domain admin credentials as a status symbol, not that they're ever going to use them, but just as a status symbol, okay, well, what do you do? If you have a policy that says anybody that clicks on a simulated phishing link 3 times in a row is fired, and it doesn't apply to the CEO, and he clicks all the time, what kind of culture do you have? And is that so zero trust doesn't fix everything, and I think so much of leadership involves great communication, right? So I think too often we say in security, right, this is the secret motto of our entire industry. We say people are the weakest link. That's wrong. People are the only link. We can't just replace all our people and expect our companies to keep operating, right? Even with AI, which we'll get to in a second, I'm sure. Right. But what happens when you talk to your CEO and you say, what's the most important part of our business, right? Every CEO in the world is going to say our people, right? That's what makes our company special. What happens if all of our people leave? We're screwed. So what happens when a security practitioner goes in front of their board and says, people are the weakest link, we should get rid of all of them, right? There's a disconnect there that we've got to help fix. We're not the chief culture officers of our companies, but we do have to do the hard work of building relationships and helping educate folks on what good practices are. Because you're exactly right? If you have a sysadmin that insists they have to have firewall holes to their personal desktop to get to everything, that's not zero trust.
No.
And the bad guys are excellent at figuring out that guy. What was the there was a major breach a couple years ago, and they breached the sysadmin's home video streaming entertainment media server that he hadn't patched. They got into his device and they pivoted into the company and stole source code or data. I forget what the thing was. That's implicit trust, because that user's access was could be leveraged to get in. That's the trust we've got to remove. It's not the trust between the CISO and the CIO that we're worried about here.
Well, the new trust that you just brought up is the AI, trust in the AI. I have learned to trust AI with things that I probably shouldn't trust it so much with, but one of the areas that I trust it very greatly in is meeting transcripts and also recording my meetings. If things are very, I would say, confidential, then someone, or I'll remove the meeting transcriber myself. But I'm getting so much value out of that. It also helps me with podcast episodes, transcribing it, see what parts are quotable from George. But curious to see, what is your lens with AI and cybersecurity today?
Man, I'm so excited that you asked this question. It's the perfect setup for this book. So Rise of the Machines, coming June 10th to an Amazon or Barnes & Noble store near you. AI isn't just one thing, right? It's a lot of different things. So with the first book, Project Zero Trust, we talk about Kinderbog's design methodology and the design principles and the maturity model, and we applied it to every major part of your organization, your cloud infrastructure, your ERP system, physical security, right? So you get to kind of do a deep dive into what zero trust means. With Rise of the Machines, what we did is every chapter essentially is a different element of how AI can impact you, whether that's you're building your own LLM, whether your users are using ChatGPT, or whether you've got agents. What about adversarial AI? What about AI to accelerate your security program? Each chapter does the deep dive into each one of those and applies zero trust principles to it, along with introducing some interesting characters and telling some really awesome stories along the way. And drop in a ton of like, pop culture references. I've actually lost count at this point. I don't even know, how many hundreds of references I've made. It's hard to have a conversation about securing AI because it means so many different things, right? I'm doing, reinforcement learning on this model. I've used an open source small language model trained on my custom data. I have to figure out how to deal with agents built into my Salesforce system, right? Oh, I mean, man, how do I even start to get my arms wrapped around that? Well, the spoiler alert, zero trust. So there you go. But right, I mean, the way you do that, right? There's a methodology to applying zero trust, and again, we help walk people through, but it's a technical answer every time. And you have to really understand deeply how each technology works in order to get your arms wrapped around it.
When it comes to AI and zero trust, let's say you were to join your current role now and you learn that they're trying to apply a zero trust strategy. You hear that they have AI. What's the first thing you're going to ask about or look for to kind of gain an understanding of what you should do?
Yeah, so great question. I mean, I come down like, everybody says like, start with the basics, but like in my mind, the basics mean like, what's people's educational, background? Can we get them training specifically in zero trust? Have they done a boot camp in AI? Have they, just been playing with it at home and, they're bringing it to the table? Is it a vendor coming in and there's not a lot of internal knowledge that to support it or maintain it, right? All of those pieces are really challenging. You've got to kind of understand your environment. That's really the first key to wrapping your arms around it. And guess what? I did come into a new job. I've been at UT for about a year, and we're doing all of the things that I talk about in the book here in real life, right? So, we're building our own private AI infrastructure, and we're securing it. There's such a thing now as an AI firewall. So, gosh, what does that mean? Well, I mean, it's essentially the same thing that we've always been using. We had firewalls, and then we had web application firewalls, and then we added API firewalls. We've got AI firewalls now. It's just a proxy, or maybe you've got a connection to an API with your existing LLM, for example. Maybe your LLM has guardrails, and you need to connect back to those. So you've really got to understand your environment. In the book, the first step of the methodology is to focus on what matters most to the business, right? You call it a protect surface. Think about the crown jewels in an organization, right? Your ERP system, and your payroll, all the infrastructure that you need to keep things operational. All those things are going to have AI in it. So maybe you're creating new protect surfaces. Maybe you're building a whole new LLM from scratch. That's a new protect surface. Maybe you got existing protect surfaces that you need to start to think about how AI works within them. Say your endpoints are your protect surface there, and you want to enforce policy on people going to ChatGPT and not uploading your source code there. So, typically you would have teams wrapped around each protect surface, and they collaborate with one another. They all are focused on, securing that, whatever the data is in there, whatever the protect surface looks like. And we use that process, right? We're increasing our maturity all the time and trying to get better. But then something new comes along, and we've got to kind of, start to figure that out. And AI, I think collectively was a really great opportunity for us to restart that process of maturing our zero trust process along the way at the same time.
One of the things that we all want to protect is that, those crown jewels, but also our executives, like we just mentioned, allowing your CEO or your C-suite to do certain things, but also protecting them. But I heard that there is a deepfake voice of you floating around the internet.
Man, I'm having so much fun. I'm just, so for April Fool's Day, I think that April Fool's Day ought to be renamed like International Zero Trust Day, Why? Well, I mean, April Fool's is the one day out of the year nobody trusts anything they read on the internet, right? This is what we should be doing 365 days of the year. So to celebrate, International Zero Trust Day, I deepfaked myself, and it was fantastic. I did a voice clone, but I also trained it on all of my books. And so you could call a phone number and talk to me. I mean, it sounded just like me, and I have to admit some of the things that it responded with were probably better than what I had to say. But it was so cool. We launched it, and some of my favorite responses. One guy asked it, "What superhero could foil zero trust, if any?" And it had the perfect answer, I thought, which was Batman. Right. He's a detective. He's always, using computers to solve his crimes. So I thought that was really cool. And then the same guy was like, okay, write a country music song about Batman hacking computers, and he got it to have my voice singing him a country music song. It was pretty cool. I think we need a George Finney hotline. So if any of the sponsors out there want to, sponsor a Zero Trust hotline, give me a call.
That's actually a really good idea. I mean, especially since you've written, now you're going on another book that's primarily around zero trust, and it's not just so hard on the technical details. I think that would be that's really a really cool. Did it sound like you, the voice singing?
Oh my gosh, yeah, it really did. I mean, yeah. It was cool. It was cool because I got to listen to all the recordings, and I could see the transcripts to read what people were asking it. So just it was a fun experiment for sure. But AI makes it so easy. I mean, I have to say, it didn't actually take me that long to build a voice clone of myself and train it on all of my books. Right? It was a really seamless process.
Yeah. I mean, especially with something like 11 Labs. 11 Labs, for anyone that doesn't know, is a great voice cloning software. Kind of freaky because it does ask you for consent. Like, do you have the consent to use this voice? And you could just say, yes, I do, and keep it going. I think stuff like that, though, 11 Labs, writing a book, leads to other creative work. Success breeds success. I think creativity breeds creativity. And I love the fact that you're, bringing in some more creative ideas and using your voice. Someone should sponsor that hotline because it would probably be giving out some really good advice. What are the things that are keeping you most curious and engaged to pursue the next project? I
don't know what, well of creativity I'm drawn from, but, I started wanting to play the guitar. So that's next up on my list. Kind of around the pandemic, I started doing, kind of graffiti spray paint pop art. So that's been a lot of fun. I can't wait to get back to that. I'm going to do a painting giveaway sometime soon. So follow me on LinkedIn if you want to get in on the painting. I did a Transformers kind of thing. So it's spray paint pop art robots. So just, again, like I don't know, the way my brain works, it's just, I can't stop it from doing some of this stuff. So yeah.
I'm the same way. I'm locked in, but I also take breaks, but like same way that you probably take breaks. Like I take breaks doing something else that's going to stimulate my mind that might be somewhat related to cyber. Mine lately has been vibe coding. Like when I see a cool, interesting project, I'm like, okay, great, it's on. Let me create a few prompts and see what happens. I don't need to make tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars from these little small SaaS microservices I'm building, but it's a creative outlet and it is a rep in the game.
That's the cool thing about AI is it lowers the point of entry to doing some of these things that we all should be thinking about how we can, do more with it. I heard from a CEO of a company the other day. He's saying, cool, people are talking about how it's going to make individuals, contributors more effective, but he's saying the rock stars in his organization, the rock stars are 100 times more impactful because of AI. And I mean, think about, how much of a difference we can make there. And, I mean, people are down on vibe coding and okay, cool. I get it. But I mean, it's all about the impact that we can have. I mean, every chess grandmaster in the world today is using AI to prep for their games. The chess grandmasters of today, pit them against, grandmasters 100 years ago. There's no comparison.
Right.
So I mean, I think it's a rising tide raises all ships, right? That's the mode we're in today. And man, take advantage of it. Like, I mean, let it unleash your mind.
One final piece of advice for cybersecurity leaders. I think there's a lot of people that aspire to be in a similar situation as you. I mean, you're absolutely crushing it. You got, I think, 3 books. One that I didn't mention is Well Aware. It's got 9 essential habits for cybersecurity practitioners. You have books, you have CISOs reporting into you. You are also, painting. What's one piece of advice that you give anyone that wants to be a little bit better at being a cybersecurity leader, whether it's on the court or off the court?
Yeah, I like that, right? Because you don't have to. I mean, not everybody needs to aspire to be a CISO, right? When you grow up, it might not even really be your favorite job if you want to get into it. But you can lead from wherever you are, right? That you hear that training circles all the time, right? You can make a difference no matter what role you're in. And I think the more of a difference you make, right, that's just the natural progression is people want to see you make that difference at a larger level. So I get this question all the time, like volunteer, be a mentor for folks. There's the Cyber Patriot program. I think that's still going, where high school students are looking for help and guidance. I mean, talk to your friends who are teaching at universities and offer to guest lecture or help out. I mean, there's so many ways. I don't recommend writing books. It's a lot of work. You don't make any money on it, by the way. So any help you can please buy Rise of the Machines just to keep this going if you want to see another one. But man, find a way where you can uniquely make a difference, right? And all of your listeners have their own interests, their own gifts. And find a way to pair those natural gifts with that passion that you have for cybersecurity. Because I love in cyber we've got so much diversity of perspective. I mean, I'm going to put it more bluntly that we're a bunch of weirdos, and that is fantastic, right? I mean, we go to conferences and people are all tatted up or they're dressed in crazy different ways. I think we can't have an echo chamber in security because we need diversity of thought and perspective, and to challenge the ideas and assumptions that we all make every day, because that's the hacker mindset. So cool. Let's bring that in, and whatever way. You can make it. I mean, volunteer at B-sides in your local region. They've got those conferences all over. That's one of the ways I got my start. Is I just volunteered to give some talks about things I knew about, and people seem to really enjoy them, and that led me to do more. So gosh, there's so many ways you can give back. The security community really is a community, and I have inherited so much from the security community. I think it's really just an honor to be able to give back to everyone out there.
Love that, George. I'm wishing you the best, and everyone that's listening or watching, be sure to check out the show notes or description not to just buy Rise of the Machines, but you gotta go back and read the previous books by George as well. It's in there, so check it out. It's coming out early June. George, I'm gonna pick up my copy. I can't wait to get a signed one, and hopefully we get to do this again very soon. And with that, we'll see everyone next time.